For those of you that have been here for a while, you probably remember back when I talked about the analog horrors Local 58 and Gemini Home Entertainment. Two absolute masterclass pieces of work that I think still hold the top ranking spots in analog horror. Now don't get me wrong, we have gotten plenty of fantastic works over the years, no doubt, but not many have conveyed the same style that Local 58 and Gemini were able to. Not that they have to, but for me that style of analog horror has always been the most effective. It's the most subtle with its scares, making you believe everything is all fine and dandy until one thing comes across as off, and then it all goes downhill from there. I am very happy to report, however, that after stumbling upon this pretty recent analog horror, White Stag Education, right off the bat I just knew that this was going to be exactly what I wanted. That uncanny nostalgia trip that these videos like to throw you on. It's not clear just yet how or if these entries connect to one another, but as always, there's only one way to find out. As always, be sure to go check out the original series before diving it over here to help support these really talented creators. If this is going to be anything like Local 58 and Gemini Home Entertainment, then I can't stress enough the requirement of some protective gear. I had to dust mine off for this very occasion. But before I let you get too far, just wanted to say if you're new here and enjoy what you're watching, be sure to hit all those neat buttons down below, including the subscribe and bell notification so you can be a part of every new upload. Also, real quick, just wanted to mention that as of this moment, me and some others are going to be at Phoenix Fan Fusion all 3 days, May 24th through the 26th. Not affiliated with the event in any ways, just going to have a fun time, so if any of you already have tickets or are planning on it, you might see some familiar faces. There will more than likely be more info and details as the convention gets closer, but anyways, now you can pass through. Pine Barrens Hiking Safety, Entry 1. Our entry begins and we are met with our White Stag Education program. Starting us off is hiking safety. Very crucial as hiking can be very dangerous. The peaceful music and atmosphere really help just ease you into a state of calm. First things first, we must go over the acronym SAFE. S is for stick to the trails. This is always important as wandering off is certainly a one-way ticket to Lostville. Luckily, there are trail blazes that will help you stick to the correct path. We're shown what each rectangle and its position on the trees mean in relation to the direction. I actually had never heard of something like this, so hey, this is certainly coming out educational. We learn that as of 1968, it became federally mandated that all the trails must be blazed. I wonder if they had an incident. It's then said to not follow unmarked trails or trails with suspicious markers. You will not return. And here we go. Now on to A, acquire equipment. Obviously, you shouldn't be going on a hike ill-prepared. Luckily, we are provided with a checklist to make sure we have everything that we need. We are even able to grab a map from the visitor center to make things even easier. So far, nothing seems to be too far off, other than the cryptic messaging about us not ever returning. F, as it turns out, stands for Fear the Forest. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you might want to fasten your seatbelts here. The Mass people have lived in the Pine Barrens for hundreds of years. An unholy entity holds dominion over the woods. Their ablations augment its strength. So you're telling me we have a demonic spirit that has completely claimed ownership of these woods? I'd like to see his paperwork. It said once you hear the whistling, you know it's too late. And we can see as two masked figures surround our poor cameraman. Our last letter E is just evacuate, aka haul ass. Our cameraman tries to follow protocol, but unfortunately it doesn't end too well. That's where this entry ends, and honestly this alone did a good enough job at getting me spooked. I don't know, just something about that quick transition from a peaceful, relaxing looking hiking area to an immediate history lesson on the ancient scary people who roam the area. I'm definitely intrigued to see where this could possibly go next. Christmas Eve Candlelight Service, Entry 2. Our entry opens with a bit more of a distorted opening, but we quickly switch over to this film the church service for Christmas Eve. Oddly enough, the names listed in the special thanks spell out innocent, send help. Is this telling us that these people specifically are in need of help right now? From who? Our pastor? He goes on to recite John 3:16 and then specifically talks about how the Lord has given us creation and the opportunity to do with it what we wish. The next verse he recites is Enoch 21:4, which is a very interesting pick given as how it's been removed from the Bible lore if what I read is true. Once the service video seems to end, we transition over to two characters, Dan and Luke, heading into some sort of basement. What's down there must certainly be a sight since Luke quickly gets startled.
Holy shit! Be quiet.
It sounds like some animalistic creatures chained up down here. Dan calms Luke down before we hear him blast whatever creature is down here with a pistol. It doesn't seem to do too much except anger the creature as we hear it break out of its chains and chase down Luke and Dan.
Shit! Fuck! Jesus Christ!
Unfortunately, Luke wasn't fast enough and gets caught by the creature, and it definitely sounds like he was killed.
Fuck! Holy shit!
We can see earlier in the entry that Dan and Luke were the two who filmed the Christmas Eve service. Do they have any other affiliations with this church? As of right now, this church is my #1 suspect. Intuitain Product Information Video. Entry 3. When this entry begins, it's immediately made clear that this was not produced by White Stag Education. In fact, they highly discouraged the use of the Intuitain domestic pill. I wonder why they would be advertising it then. We learn about Genesis Technologies, who over the past 7 years has been developing a drug that heightens the accuracy of human foresight. The whole point of this video is to show us the test results and potential side effects of this new drug. The first test involved mice. There was the control group and the group that was given a dose of 50 milligrams. The tests these mice go through remind me of those violently angering Roblox games. Unfortunately, no mice in the first group were successful in getting the cheese. However, in the second group, there was a 76% success rate. Looks like the next phase was to then go on to some human trials. The second test had a group of people trying to guess the next color that would randomly appear on a shown stoplight. This time, Group 2 was given 200 milligrams of Intuitain. For the control group, only 79 out of the 250 guesses were correct, making it only a 31.6 success rate. Yet, in an honestly shocking turn of events, the people in Group 2 had a success rate of 100%. This drug basically turns people into clairvoyants. However, now it's time to get into the potential side effects. The fun part of all this. It's said that in some cases people have reported having very vivid and lifelike dreams that can cause insomnia and paranoia. The folks up at Genesis believe that these dreams may also be predicting future events as well, so they are giving them clairvoyance. The first person to have this happen was Margaret Pendleton. She dreamt about a never-before televised puppet show. She states that in the dream, it had felt like she had seen the program hundreds of times, even though it never existed. That doesn't seem too much like predicting the future. But that's different with Henry Ledger. He dreamt that a meteor fell towards Earth and crashed somewhere in New Jersey. This in turn helped Genesis discover a new comet. Sir Henry so far has been successful at reading the future. However, our screen glitches out and we are presented with Daniel Carpenter's dream. Doesn't this sight look familiar? It's said that he was standing in front of a group of masked people and could recall an immense amount of heat coming from a large hole they all stood around. He was even able to transcribe a melody he heard while dreaming. 3 days after his dream, he had a violent encounter with the masked men, yet it said he never came across the hole. It's clear that Daniel was the cameraman from the first entry, where we saw him at the end run straight into one of the figures. It all kind of makes sense now as to why White Stag would want to come out and say they do not endorse this drug. It seems like it's giving people the ability to see right through the weird rituals that appear to be going on in this area. They don't want their secrets getting spilled. The real question is, did Daniel go searching for these masked figures, or did they find him? Stranger Danger Puppet Show. Entry 4. The start of this entry introduces us to a kids' TV episode of Forest Friends, specifically the Stranger Danger special. We're introduced to Rex, and in classic kids show fashion, we are an integral part of the episode as the characters frequently speak directly to us. Now that I think of it, this is the show that Margaret had dreamt about in the prior entry. Is this just showing us her dream? Because last I checked, the show never existed. Looks like her dream came true after all. But in this world, it sounds like the plan is to meet up with some friends to go camping. Rex runs off to go get packed as our second character knocks at the door and walks on in. Welcome, Anna. She looks around for Rex, and when she sees us, she seems to be taken aback. Seems a bit frightened by us. She looks at Rex and asks how he knows that we're not a stranger. The two decide the way to know for sure is to introduce us to Ranger Luke, since he knows everything about stranger dangers. We find ourselves out in the woods as we see a ranger, Luke. Rex and Anna approach him and they ask if we're a stranger. According to Luke, we don't look like strangers, so he must be okay. Thank God, I was worried I was gonna have to turn myself in real quick. When asked if Rex and Anna know the steps to spot a stranger, they actually seem to not be aware. But no need to fear, Ranger Luke has the voice of an angel and sings us all a song about the steps.
Remember that story from way back when? If you can't recall, let me tell it again.
As the song goes on, it's clear it's about Little Red Riding Hood, except there are some interesting differences in the story. In this story, the blazes are on the trees, and honestly, there are just some odd implications in these lyrics. In the song, once Little Red gets to Grandma's house, something that would traumatize any child gets thrown at us.
It was too late, Granny locked the door. Red saw her face, it wasn't her.
He ends off the song, and we then move on over to another set of characters, Oswald and Gleason. The two are going off on a hike, but there seems to be a situation. After trying to calm Gleason down a little bit, he realizes they forgot the map and starts to worry they're on a false trail. And that's when the whistling begins.
We've been following the trailblazers, so we'll be okay. We forgot to use a map. Are we on a false trail?
According to Oswald, since the whistle isn't a melody, they are safe and just need to stay still and quiet. Yet, I don't really know how much this will help them given what comes next. We end up getting to a new segment, where this friendly-looking pig character has a spot the stranger. Seems easy enough. These hiding spots are definitely not good enough to trick me, I tell ya. However, after our second round, it is said to spot the adversary. Interestingly enough, the creature we heard with Oswald and Gleason is also referred to as the adversary. Is this the thing that attacked Luke and Dan way in the beginning? Wait a minute, is Luke and Dan Ranger Luke and Ranger Dan? I feel silly for potentially just now picking up on that. This certainly looks like an adversary to say the least. It's said to be beneath the forest, and we get a quick blink and you miss the text that just reads, "The burning sword protects us," whatever that means. Our pig signs off and we're at the end segment of our show, where all our friends sit around the campfire and talk about their day. Rex and Anna talk about the nice fishing trip they have. Seems like a lot of fun. Once he gets to Oswald and Gleason, they seem to hesitantly talk about the hike adventure they had. They admit that they got lost and ended up hearing the strangers whistling. Ranger Luke commends them for their good work and appropriate response to the whistling melody. When asked what they would have done if the whistling wasn't a song, they say that they would close their eyes and run away, which seems like the right thing to do. This episode ends with an in memoriam page where it shows that each puppet was based on a real kid. Now that's a revelation to say the least. Near the end of the entry, they all chant that they can't rest until their stories are told.
But we can't rest until our stories are told!
Another interesting thing to mention is what happened to Grandma in the Stranger Danger song. At first it appears like someone must have taken Grandma and was setting a trap, but it's possible that it was indeed Grandma, but transformed into something inhuman. Grandwood Park Ranger Training, Entry 5. Our final entry opens up and it looks like we are watching a park ranger training video. Oh boy, I can't wait for this job. It's said, however, that there are still some basics we need to learn before heading out into the field. We're introduced to Ranger Craig, who's going to be helping us out today. I already love this guy. Craig is eager to get to work just like us, but first we must go over some basics. Looks like this is the moment people can choose to walk away for their own good. What could possibly be in this job description that requires a warning like this? It's even said that you can't resign later, so you're just stuck in this job for eternity? I guess that's the price to pay for this secret knowledge. First thing we have to go over is environmentally sensitive and unsafe areas. As a park ranger, we're given an assigned area to monitor, and it's our duty to protect visitors from potential threats. Seems like this includes making sure trees are properly marked so that people don't wander into false trails that lead to inner Grandwood. If we catch visitors on false trails, we gotta put a stop to that immediately and have them return. It's even said to use aggression if they refuse. I don't know who would refuse, because if I saw this in the forest, I would have been gone already. Next order of business is tempting sights and sounds. We actually get some explanations I wasn't expecting in this training video. we learn that strangers are bipedal organisms that live in the park. They either sing a melodic whistle to signify a feeding gambit. I imagine this is just their attempt to lure you in so that they can snack on you. But if people are smart enough to not continue further, they should be fine, but we still have to move them to a safe area. Next is when safe areas become unsafe. That's analog horror in a nutshell right there. If the strangers whistle in a more sporadic nature, then that means it's a hunting gambit. I can only imagine this means they no longer want to just sway you to come to them, they are just going to go after you. It's said to tell visitors to close their eyes and to run in the other direction. Ranger Craig is doing a fantastic job here. After alerting HQ of an incident, a siren will sound to alert all other rangers to evacuate their areas. Once they're all cleared out, it's time for the rangers to subdue the hunting gambit. How the hell are we gonna do that? Oh, I guess we're gonna find out right now. Ranger Craig is back to his area, and it's time for us to take care of the threat. Why they don't have another ranger with Craig is beyond me. It's even said later that strangers hunt in packs, so unless Craig is John Wick, I'd want a buddy with him. We see as a stranger lurks in the forest watching Craig, while more freakishly crawl around behind him. It's said to go full force on these strangers and gun them down until they are dead. What the narrator says here has me very intrigued.
They have surrendered their body to the forest, and you are doing them a service by freeing their soul.
It sounds like these are all people who got their bodies used against their will by this entity in the forest. Perhaps the adversary. Now that that's all over and done with, the training video has concluded. Looks like there's a physical test waiting for Ranger Craig after this, to be put to the true test. Ranger Luke, Dan, and Craig all sign us off as we completed this portion of the training successfully. It's not clear yet if more entries will be released, but I truly hope more is to come out of the series. If I had to guess, I would imagine that a lot of these entries take place in quite different times than each other, so this is my best attempt to connect the dots. The Intuitate product information video probably takes place the earliest in this timeline, as it's said Margaret dreamt of this non-existent TV series that we ended up seeing later. Henry dreams of a comet that crashes down to Earth, to which he was able to predict the existence of said comet. However, things got real interesting when it came to Daniel's dream. A group of people surrounding a large hole emanating immense heat. It's the crash site for the comet, to which would more than likely lead to this adversary coming out and causing chaos, potentially creating these proxies to go out and lure victims in for a feeding. But for what purpose? Is it solely so this creature can just feed, or is there something bigger at play? As it turns out, a quick glance over at the community tab of the channel might just have our answers. It also turns out Google Translate is not going to let us off so easily on this one. From some quick Google searches, it looks like igneous translates to fire, gladius translates to sword, saxum translates to stone, and I won't even try with this word, but it's a verb that translates roughly to altering or turning into of some sorts. So I would imagine it would be more like the fire sword turns to stone. Funnily enough, I went through all that trouble to translate the phrase when a quick comment search would have had it right there for me. Anyways, A for effort, I guess. The fiery sword turns to stone, huh? Last mention of that would have been in that really quick flash frame of text where it says the burning sword protects us. The next post has an image of the two puppets with Ranger Luke creepily in the shadows, to which the passage translates roughly to Margaret Pendleton's dream came true. Our next post has a newspaper clipping talking about Ranger Luke's passing. This is where things get especially interesting. We see that there has been a recent uptick in sightings of what people are calling the Jersey Devil, and it looks like we got ourselves a good look at our potential adversary. And given as to how the white stag is often credited to symbolize purity and really just overall good, I believe, ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a classic case of angels versus demons. Especially given the latest post that translates to, the white stag appreciates its companions. Leger's comet crashes down to Earth carrying the legendary myth himself, the Jersey Devil, and it's up to the park rangers, who are borderline angels at this point, to keep the demons at bay from spreading throughout the rest of Jersey. When it comes to religion, I am probably the worst person to talk to about it because my intelligence stat for religion is probably around 1. So I don't really pick up right away to religious allegories, and unfortunately they are used all over analog horrors. So I was actually shocked I was able to kind of pick up on that layer. All I can say at the end of watching this is, wow. I'm so incredibly pleased that I was able to have an experience similar to that of Local 58 and Gemini, and the other top-tier analog horrors that just use this style so well. Everything in the series felt authentic, and it really shined during the Stranger Danger entry. Everything was presented like a legitimate episode of children's TV. Even the guy who played Ranger Luke fit right in with the setting. No acting took me out. If anything, the acting really brought me in. This whole series just oozes out that tense atmosphere that just leaves you constantly looking over your shoulder, and gives you an immense fear of hiking in the woods. White Stag Education certainly gets the stamp of approval from me for managing to still keep things fresh in the analog horror world, especially in a style I feel many consider to be overused at this point. I really can't wait to see what else comes from this series, as it seems like there is still a lot that we could learn and uncover about this world. Most importantly, however, is that Ranger Craig managed to survive. As always, be sure to go show some love to the original creator, as they truly have been able to make something great here. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I thank you all for watching, and be sure to continue leaving me recommendations down below for stuff you'd like me to check out. But other than that, I'm putting on my park ranger outfit, and I'm getting to work.